Well, here we are in a high. Well, here we are in a. We got you to stand. It's the best in the land, so we know you will take my heart. So take that moment high. We're backing you on and high. Heart is a brave protector and voice for the instructor. Victory from you, name high. We're loyal to you, name high. We're really right, name high. So let's go up next door, and you lead them so far they will want to play us anymore. So sing that moment high. We're backing you all in high. Heart is a brave protector, and life for we expect the victory from you, name high.
The Isabella, Nama, and St. Jakes area is a great place to live. Such families as the Gua family, the Levine family, and the Cameberg family live in Isabella. It wasn't hard to find someone with stories from the past and thoughts about the future. Nama was a lumber town in the early years. When the mill closed, the plant was bought by American Playground, a company that made playground equipment. Families such as the Bramers, the Ritters, the Beauchamps lived in Nama. As years went by, Nama has become a resort area where family and friends can enjoy some family time. The St. Jakes area had families such as the Grollos, the Pomeroys, and the Hardwicks. Now, it was common to see houses full of company for Sunday supper and family get-togethers. Hunting and fishing is a popular pastime out there.
It's Rose Teresa Beauchamp. My parents was Rose and David Phelan. I come from a family of 6. 2 girls and 4 boys. And I lived in Nama all my life, except for about 6 months when I was in Detroit. I worked at the rectory cleaning house for 5 different priests.
Okay.
And the last priest I worked for was Father Timot.
Okay.
And it started out with Father Frank.
Like
I went to the Nama school and I quit to get married in February of 1951. Well, like I said, I was married in 1951, and I remember in 1952 going to basketball games there.
Right.
Actually, it was quite a few years after that, because I remember my daughter Patty, we went to, they had it open for wedding receptions and banquets and things like that, so.
Okay.
What year they would have closed, it had to be in the 60s.
Something like that?
No, but it was sure a beautiful building.
Yeah.
I mean, it housed everything in there, But the only thing I ever did in there was cheerleader. I was cheerleader for 5 years.
Okay.
And, so as far as, that's the only thing I participated in was cheerleading at the basketball games.
Right.
And sold tickets. I did sell tickets for basketball games too. But other than that, no. I didn't work in there like in the candy kitchen or anything like that. I was born down the street, the very last house next to Merle's.
Okay.
I got married down in Detroit
Okay.
in April 7th, down in Detroit. We moved back up here in October when the American Playground took over the town.
Okay.
And so we lived in the double house down here
Okay.
where Mike Netto owns it, with the red roof.
Mm-hmm.
We lived there until 1956. And then we moved here, and I've lived the name all my life. I was born here. I was born at the end of the street, and I'm still here. And I will turn 80 years old in November. So it's I come full circle, I think, Junior. Yeah.
Pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much. That's what it sounds like.
And the name of high school, my son Chris graduated from this school in 1970.
Okay.
That's the last class that graduated from this school here.
Okay.
1970. But the school was already consolidated at that time. The three schools was already consolidated in 1970.
But they were still had the separate schools.
But they still had the separate schools. The high school was here, and then the grade school was in Cooks, and another grade school part was in Garden.
Okay.
Because Chris, like Chris and Carl and Rod and Wayne Clement and Herb Pomeroy and Pat Rangat and all them graduated at this school here.
I see. I see.
And that was 1970.
1970.
That was the worst class they ever had. Yeah, I'm not kidding you.
Uh-huh.
If anybody asks you, that was the worst class. Oh my God, Carl was horrible. The growing up years, no. It was good. The kids were good. I mean, they had the whole town to entertain themselves back then.
Right,
They had
right.
the ball diamond, they had the tennis court, they had the beach. Nobody minded them playing in their yard,
Right.
It was a free town. The kids had all their freedom. Yes, in fact, it was a hangout for Patty Megan and Ken, Tim and Melissa. Those four I really remember. And then the younger kids would go up there and ring the bell because, you'd hear that bell and you'd say, oh, somebody's playing on the train. Until the day somebody stole it.
Oh, that's what I heard.
But it was a gathering place for Tim, the teenagers, the older kids, teenagers. And then for the younger kids, they played on it. Yeah, it was kind of like a gathering place. But those four people, Ken and Patty and Tim and Melissa, those four I do remember that hung out there a lot. No, between the clubhouse and the hall,
Right.
no, that was just a big open field there.
Okay.
But on the west side of the clubhouse was the tennis court. And then when Big Baby Lumber Company owned it, then there was the boarding house and the cookhouse.
Okay.
And then there was a double house right on the corner where the basketball court is down there.
Yeah.
There used to be a double house because Madeline Turek used to live in there when she got married. But in the middle, it was just a big field. Because when I was a child, circuses used to come with elephants and all that, when I was small, probably 10, 11 years old. That open field that had circuses. And then, of course, back of the clubhouse, it was a parking spot for the bar. Cars parked back there.
Now,
When I lived in, but when the town burnt back in 1921, there was houses on that street.
okay.
But that was back in 1921. I didn't see no houses on that street. In the same block with the clubhouse. No. American Playground moved up here. They bought, and they used that was their head office. They moved. American Playground in 1951-52 moved their whole business up here.
Okay.
The hotel was their office. They put all electric heat in there and everything at that time. But then the owner's son, Phil Miller, his wife did not like it up here. And so they moved half of it back to Anderson and left half of it here. The painting and that was done here because my husband, Pat, did all the painting. Painted all the playground equipment. That was his job, head painter down here. That was the office for the Baby Knock Lumber Company.
Okay. I thought that's where American Playground had their office.
They had part of it there, but the main one was the hotel.
I see.
Yeah, because Joni Septic used to work there too. She worked for the American Playground. And then when they moved back to Anderson, she
That's
worked for
Joni Grimes.
Is that their last name? I don't know what her married name was.
Who was Joni Sepsic related? No,
Yeah.
is that Frank's
No,
sister?
that would be Joe's daughter.
Oh, Joe.
Joe and Polly's daughter, Joe.
Okay, Joe and Polly.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
That's where I went when Chris was born. It was the big Bagninock Lumber Company always had their own doctor. And the doctor had their own house. It was a big, big home right next to the Protestant church down there.
Okay.
It was big. I mean, you could go upstairs and go down the hall and go downstairs in the back and it sets of stairs. They always had a doctor. And then right on the corner, across from the basketball court down here, right on the corner was the hospital. Had beds in there and everything for patients. But it was smack on the corner. Even yet, it shows a cement that went into the side door.
I see.
You know, it's very close to the cream-colored house that sits here at the end of the street.
Mm-hmm.
But it was right on the corner.
Okay, okay.
And then when the American Playground bought, well, then the doctor was here for a while because he delivered Chris. And Chris was born in 1952. So the company doctor was still here in 1952, Dr. Bruner. He was Spanish.
Oh,
Spanish doctor, yeah. And his wife was Spanish.
Okay.
He was so loud, I'm telling you, if you went in there, everybody in the waiting room could hear everything he said, I'll tell you. But, so I know he was still here in 1952. You know, before my daughter Candy died of breast cancer. You know, she was going to start writing children's stories, but she had to write a biography of herself. You know, and in that biography, she said, you know, she was talking. She said, there was no place like the name of beach, and really, Junior, there was no place like the name of beach. It was beautiful. It was beautiful, like nice sugar sand. You know.
How was that school laid out? What was in the basement and what did they have upstairs?
The school was in the shape of a T. The front part, and then the back way. The back part was the grade school. The front part was the high school.
I see.
Down in the basement was the cafeteria and the shop, the workshop. You know, the guys did their craft work down there. The back of the school went up to the 6th grade. There was a long hall, and there was classrooms off that long hall. And you got up to where it connected with the high school. You know, there was the girls' restroom, and then where the stretched across the front, there was the boys' restroom. But there was a big study hall, we call it. Back then you had study halls. You had an hour where you could do your studies and you wouldn't have to take homework home. You don't have that now. You have one class after another.
Yeah.
But there was the study hall, and there was the library, there was the superintendent's office, there was a science room, there was a home economics room. It was a very nice high school. And Grandpa Beauchamp, Homer Beauchamp and Grandma Beauchamp was the custodians. And they did a good job. Every time, like Christmas time, he removed all the chairs out of those rooms and sanded and varnished the floors. When we come back after New Year's, that was just beautiful in there. Just beautiful.
Basically, what were the hours for that clubhouse?
I think it started at noon, and I don't know what, probably 12 o'clock at night, probably during the week, but weekends probably later, but I'm pretty sure they opened up at noon. And until, you know, and probably they closed earlier at night. If they didn't have people there, they probably closed earlier, but I would say from 12 to 12.
Who were Pearl and Shirley Warner?
They were they managed the clubhouse. She worked the cafeteria, he worked the bar. And he ruled the roost, because I'll tell you, us kids, you like to go sit in the lobby and they'd say, oh my God, here comes Shirley down the hall. And we'd all run out the front door, you know, because he was an old crab. But yeah, they managed the place too. Yes, yeah, she took care of the cat kitchen, and he he tended the bar, but he made sure everything went smooth in the whole building. You know what I mean? I mean, he didn't put up with any tomfoolery in there. But she mainly stayed in the candy kitchen. She put up the girl there. You know, the golf course is there. And, in fact, when the golf course was put there, there was only the big shots could play golf on it. You know, like Acker and Alan Mercier and those. They was the only ones that could play on it. That golf course has been there way before, you know, I think before I was born. It was about that time anyway, and I was born at 34. But they did have sections where people had their own, you know, a community garden, like Escamada's got community gardens down there by the airport. They had community gardens out there because my husband, his parents had some out there. And they used to have to go out there and weed and water every so often, you know, and steal watermelons from the other guy's plots. That's what he told me, they stole watermelons, other guys' plots. But where Darlene's house is, that was Mr. and Mrs. LaBombard, Cocky LaBombard lived there. Because they ran the horses that was at the barn.
Oh, barn down here.
The barn, you know, back here. They'd run the horses out to it was called the farm. And where Darlene's house is, there was horse troughs there. That's where the horses were, on that side of the road. Cocky LaBombard and his wife managed that.
Okay. Oh, so
We always called that the farm road.
okay, so there was horse barns behind Darlene's place then.
Well, I can't remember horse barns being there, but they did bring the horses out there to graze. I remember that because I remember the horse troughs there.
Okay.
And LaBombard's, no, that house wasn't as nice as it is now. It was like kind of a shack, like, you know. I mean, Bob and Darlene fixed that house up nice. But yeah, they'd run the company horses out there, and they grazed out there because, you know, it's grown over now, Junior, and they planted trees there and everything, but it was all open.
Okay, now.
And you know, they always had like 10, 15 horses here. I don't remember that, but I know there was a school back at Johnson's house there.
Okay.
There was a road. You know what Mary Johnson's house there?
Right.
She was a guap. Anyway, that house is on a corner where their son Donnie's house is. There was a road that went back there. Back in there was a schoolhouse. That's where all the Isabella kids went to school, like the Cameburgs and that went to school there. And there's an Indian cemetery out there by Patty Meggett's house, you know, back in there.
Okay.
But there might have been one back here. I wouldn't know nothing about that. By
Okay.
Paul Diamond, you know. But it sounds logical though, you know. I mean, the Indians just lived across the river there, just on the other side.
Now, how big was Sandtown?
Well,
I mean, did it?
most of it started right at the bridge
Okay.
and went probably a little past the cut across road.
Okay.
But then Bursaw's, I think it was Bursaw's lived up there where Patty Meggett's house is, you know, where our water pump is. That she weaved baskets and everything. Is that Bursaw? I don't know if it's Beavers. Beavers, I think, eh?
Yeah,
But I think Sandtown only extended that far. And I remember the house was just as clear as could be, but because then beyond that was the airport. You know,
okay.
that's where Rangettes and them landed their planes. And it was the sand was so hard it was like cement, it was like a nice runway. I think actually it was probably destroyed from some bad storms with that.
I see.
Because when Beatty Knock Lumber Company owned it, we really had some bad, destroyed the trams and everything down there. You know, that's why there's so much stuff on the east side of the fishing site. The current brings that stuff and keeps washing up trash boards and everything, you know. And I that probably destroyed there. So, but it was Rangettes that really had it. Rangettes from Garden that had their planes there.
I see, I see. Now, who ran the store?
First of all, when I remember, it was Clyde Tobin. And then when Clyde Tobin retired, Joe Sessom. You know where the fishing site is now? Yeah, there was a garage there, a gas station. Heberts used to own it. I mean, they had the pit and everything, you know, to work on vehicles and work on school buses and everything. Yeah, and that was there for a long time because Wally Burnett managed it too after a while. When he was a school bus driver, that he managed that. You could get gas back there. You could have your vehicles worked on. They worked on the school buses. That was right back. And then they had, you know how the storage sheds are now that you see? The people rent storage sheds, or there's those long sections of buildings.
Yeah.
Well, they had 2 rows of those back there. People stored their cars or whatever in there.
I see.
And that was going toward the schoolhouse, then back of Mutt's house. Well, years and years ago, I mean, part of the Big Baity Knock Lumber Company, they had a mill on that road.
Oh, okay.
Before my time, I mean, you know, but it is the history. There was a mill on that road. Probably not as big as the one down here on Bay, but yeah.
Okay, but it was the same kind of mill though.
Yeah, lumber mill. And you know, probably before that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like I said, they were here in 1921.
Oh, they were. Okay.
Baity Knock Lumber Company was here in 1921. That's when the town burnt. It burnt like where the hall is, and this whole street here burnt.
Oh, okay.
And because I always remember Pat's mother saying she was pregnant for her second child, and she had to push the baby in the baby buggy down the ridges. These houses on the street, so I know was built. Probably a year or so after 1921. These were the newest houses this street was. Because of the fire. That was 1921 when the town burnt.
So,
Buddy Bennett's dad, Mr. Paul, took care of the horses there. At first she lived down by the, next to the rectory, and then they moved right down here, right by the hall,
okay.
her and Wally. There was a hall there before that.
Oh, there was.
My father was with the Boy Scouts, and up at Camp Redbrook, Federal 13, and he was able to get these 2 buildings. And he slid them down, all the way down Federal 13, coming down the highway, and this is by probably 1952, 53. Let's see, it's been here, yeah, I'd say 1952. Come down Main Street and hauled them and set them up there. It connected the 2 buildings. The end, on that other end was for receptions or anything, and the other end facing this way was for teenagers. They had jukebox in there, and in the middle they had a refreshment stand where the 2 buildings connected. And because I remember going down there and polka dancing and everything, yeah. When Roosh was living there,
Okay.
I remember him calling the hall a Mickey Mouse factory because he didn't think it was constructed right.
Okay.
Ecker lived there.
Oh, Bill Acker, okay.
Bill Acker lived there. I mean, that was a classy house.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it now, it's falling apart. But that was a classy house. That was another big home where you could go up the front stairs and down the back.
I see, I see.
And then when the American Playground bought that, and they would have some of their workers come up here, just the men, they would stay there in that house, and Lola Schaefer would do the cooking for them.
I see.
A lot of times those workers stayed at the company cabins too. It was carefree days. It was interesting. You know, I mean, my time growing up here was good. I mean, you know, in the summertime you spend on the beach or playing in the ridges, and I thought some very good memories of Namath growing up, and my kids do too. It was a perfect town to grow up in. There's nothing here now, but back then, you know, I mean, the company store, you know, you could go up there and get all your groceries. You owe your soul to the company store. That's about it.
Yeah, pretty
When you,
much.
yeah, you did. You paid up on Friday and you charged again, and you paid up on Friday and you charged again.
Is that?
No, she never lived here in town.
Oh, okay.
She probably donated quite a bit to the church, I don't know, but no. She was a dentist in Escanaba. She had a cabin up on Federal 13, and she'd come here for Mass all the time if they were up to the cabin. And then she came to the school here periodically to do dental work on kids, free at that time. And then when she did, she lived with Pat's mother and dad, Mr. and Mrs. Bolson,
Okay.
because they lived right across from the school.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So she used to stay with them. But yeah, that's who that is. That's all. The only thing they hauled around town was ice for ice boxes.
I see.
Yeah, and Pat's brother Glenn did that in the summertime. The lumber company would cut ice in the winter, and down by where the fishing site is now, it was like a little island off by itself that's grown over now, but they would bury their ice into that with the sawdust and whatnot.
Okay.
And then in the summertime, they furnished ice, because you didn't have refrigerators like that. No, you had ice boxes.
Right, right.
So he'd come with these big tongs and their big hunk ice, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I noticed the store is 2 stories.
Mhm.
So was there goods on both stories, or was there like?
That was storage.
Oh, that was storage on
Yeah,
the
and they
top?
had an elevator that went up there, you know. They had an elevator from the first floor to haul up stuff upstairs. Yeah, that was more storage than anything. No, but the downstairs was big enough to handle so much stuff. I mean, you could buy anything.
Yeah. And, well, one more question here. Now, I can remember back in the day coming into town and seeing the ladder racks.
The what?
Ladder racks?
Oh, yes, there was one right out here.
For the fire ladders?
Mhm. They were green and orange. Yeah, there was one right out here, right across from Rush's house there, yeah. It was a long section with a little green roof, and then the ladders hung on each side of it.
Okay. Then when were those put in?
Oh, God, I have no idea when those were put in. That was probably put in by the American Playground Company too, because,
Okay, but
you know, when the American Playground Company took over, Nema was in bad shape. And they cleaned up the town. They made everybody put bathrooms in right away, because there was still a lot of outdoor toilets. Nema was infested by rats. When they tore the boarding house down, Pat come home from work one day, he said, you know, those rats didn't have no place to go. They were sitting on the Civic Center steps. There was so many, but, and everybody had to get garbage cans. Because you know what they did? Just like back here. They threw their garbage over the back fence. And back to the double houses. There was 5 double houses. There was an alley that ran back there. That was just pile of garbage.
okay.
So when the American Playground took over, they cleaned up the town. Everybody had to have inside toilets, and everybody had to have garbage cans.
And right down here where the cul-de-sac is, where the turnaround is, at the end of your street. Was there any houses right there? Or
Not
was
at the
that-
end of the street.
Okay, so there was, so that was all woods.
Yeah, there was ridges, we played in the ridges. There was paths that went through there to connect that with the farm road. And we take those ridges, to go to the beach. You could ride bikes through there or anything, yeah. There was 3 ridges there that we chose, whatever one we wanted to go on, you know, to connect with the farm road, the Isabella Road. But there was no houses there. The double house was the last one, and my mom's house was the last one on this side. Yeah, they didn't rehire their employees back in 1990. Actually, November of 1989 was their last working days. And when it come to May of 1990, my husband thought they'd be going back to work until Boop Ritter come over one day and said, "No, Pat, they're not opening up the plant this year. They're done." But American Playground hired me, Boop said, and his brother Ace to work at the golf course. It was just those 2 guys that was going to be hired back with American Playground. They were going to mow the golf course, keep it up. But, so that was May of 1990 was the end, actually the end of the American Playground.
A resident of Isabella for how many years now?
Well, I've lived here just about all my life, for 71 years. Yeah. But I lived in Nama after I got married from 1940 to 1952. Yeah, I worked at the mill from 1940 right on through until the lumber mill shut down, and I think it was 1950 to 51, not sure. Well, I worked there all them years. I drove what they call them tram bugs, hauling lumber out to the yard where they piled it. And then after that, I went as a mechanic on the trucks, hauling logs. They haul logs from Grand Marais to the mill. And I was a truck mechanic there from 1947 to 51. Oh yeah.
Off the harbor right then.
In the early years of 1940, they used to have a pulp boat come in and haul the pulpwood. But they also had a lumber boat coming in. They used to haul the lumber by boat at least once a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many million feet of lumber they'd put on it, putting off a big pile of lumber. And so we'd pile it on the docks, and the boat would come in, and then they'd have derricks or cranes, whatever you want to call them, pick it up in so many tiers of lumber, and pick it up and then set it on the boat. So you didn't have to, when they first started, they used to have to handle every board. But in the latter years, they used cranes to pick it up, and they'd put in about 2,000-3,000 feet at a time and set it down.
Okay.
But the lumber boats mostly went to Sheepek Dimension in Escanaba. That's where most of that went.
Okay. Hey,
Well, they were older, you know, they wasn't equipped like they are today.
oh yeah.
They were just logs. They all only hauled the logs is all. They never hauled the pulp. They had a trailer and they hauled logs. They come from the Grand Marais. See, that was the last years that they had a job. They hauled from Grand Marais. They had their own fleet of trucks plus hired trucks hauling in logs. All the store and the hotel and the clubhouse was all going.
Now,
See, the mill workers that boarded there, they stayed in the boarding house. They had a big boarding house and a kitchen down the road toward where the hospital was. Right on the corner from, I don't know what the name of that street. It was right
right across from the Township Hall, isn't it?
on that corner down on Main Street. right across from Peanut Sergeant's there.
Okay, all right.
That, and then that's where the hospital was. Then the boarding house was in between that corner and the tennis court. There's a big boarding house there and a kitchen. It was the clubhouse in 1946 or 47. I think it was in 46. It burnt down and then they built a new one, the one that's there now in 47.
Okay, because I know that there was 3 around that.
The early 40s up to about 47. When the lumber camps got done up on the name and order line with the railroad, well then they didn't use the boarding house anymore because they had up at camp at Grand Marais, the guys stayed up there. So they discontinued that right around in, I'd say 48, 49, somewhere in there.
So it was.
Oh yeah, see, I worked in the mill and then I worked in the clubhouse also at night. I'd, worked the mill and then at night I'd work in the clubhouse, helped the bartender in the clubhouse until I started working on the trucks. Then I couldn't work no more in the clubhouse because I had to work at night on the trucks when they'd come in.
So.
No, they were only working 4, 5, 8-hour days. And some years when they got during the war that they got pressed for a little more time, they got more orders, and we had to work Saturday mornings, 4 hours on Saturday morning. Well, most of them did, but there's a lot of them that left town. Some of them went to the railroad on to Gladstone. Some of them went to lumber companies elsewhere. You know, some went out west to a lumber company. Well, it didn't coincide with their type of business. They didn't want to sell alcohol and beer and manufacturing playground equipment. See, that didn't correspond with one another.
Okay, yeah, that's.
In the plant there now, that's where all the steam heat comes from over there.
Right, and also.
In the hotel, the store, the clubhouse, the boarding house, the hospital, vice president's house, and the truck garage was all heated with steam heat from the boilers over at the planing mill there, the plant that they converted into the plant now.
Right. Now, is
Truck
it
mechanic.
truck mechanic?
Yeah, when they bought the logging trucks, they built that garage. See, all the trucks were kept inside in a heated garage, so they didn't have no problems with them, out in the cold.
The Indian cemetery is. Well, I said, it's up on the hill at St. Jake's. Well, then after she left, I got to thinking, when we were kids, you know where the Ball Diamond is?
Yeah.
Well, there was a cemetery just beyond the Ball Diamond, going west. We kids used to walk there. And somebody said, if you walk around enough, you'll see the Indians come out of their grave. And we kids, kids.
Right.
And some of the kids were brave, the bigger kids. They had sticks, and they'd push into the ground and they'd rattle the coffin. I said, oh, they're going to come up and haunt you. But I forgot to tell the lady about this. This is the cemetery that she was thinking about, the original one. We just found it by accident, and then we inquired around, and they said, oh, yes, that's the first Indian cemetery. I bet I wasn't any more than 7 or 8 years old when we were out there. Well, the boarding house, where the pump is, well, just on the other side of the flowing fountain was the brewing house. Then next door to it was where they did the cooking.
Mm-hmm.
That was where they ate, and did the cooking. But my recollection is kind of foggy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know, well, later, then after the rooming house wasn't there, they had a barber shop. That's where the barber shop was,
Okay.
after. This is later.
Mm-hmm.
But they had 3 floors. They had the main floor and second floor, and the rooming house was 3 floors. And when those lumberjacks came, they were filled up. They
Mhm.
really were. They come down in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them that worked at the mill stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the spring of the year, when they all came down from the woods,
Well, I remember the old clubhouse when I first came here
Mm-hmm.
about 61 years. I guess it is. Yeah, it was the old clubhouse, and that one burned down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they built this clubhouse.
Yeah.
There used to be movies on Sunday night. I remember that. We used to go down on Sunday night and watch a movie. There was a man from Gulliver that used to come over here. His name was it Birch? No. Can't remember. We used to go down movies at the clubhouse every Sunday night. And I remember I used to go down there. We'd sit on just chairs. Can you imagine watching a movie in the auditorium? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was something to do on Sunday nights,
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there was the candy kitchen where we'd go there. Like on Sundays, I'd walk down there and get a sundae or something,
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, there were bowling. They even had women that were down there. They had teams. I'd never bowled. But I mean, then we'd hold all our meetings down there, our Altar Society meetings down at the clubhouse. Everything took place in that clubhouse.
Uh-huh. Pearl Warner?
Pearl Warner. Yeah, she lived on, I used to live in a house down this street here. There were 1, 2, 3, 5 houses like this. And she used to live in the 3rd house.
Mm-hmm.
She and what's her name? Shirley Warner.
Yeah.
Shirley Warner and Pearl. Yeah, he
Yeah.
ran the clubhouse.
Yeah, sure.
And the library, I forgot, because I worked at the library. In fact, there's books down there in that clubhouse that are all packed in boxes that belong to the people of Avon.
Oh, yeah?
They should be brought over here and put in this library here because they do belong to the people.
Uh-huh.
When I came here, it was 900. That's in 1933.
1933?
Every house was filled. You couldn't find a place to live. As I worked at the hotel at the time. And there were some people that were living upstairs and 2 families, one upstairs, one downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
down on the other end of town.
Okay. Oh, on the other end of town, like by Bramers?
Huh?
By Bramers down there?
Yeah, down that end of town.
There
Pretty
was-
much fishing.
There was a
You know,
hospital
they
in
called
here?
it fish down the other end of town.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
because they were all fishermen.
Oh, I see.
That was besides, and the plant, the mill. All the men worked in the mill, your Indians worked in the mill.
I see.
Because we had a lot of Indians over there across the river at
So,
that time. When I came here, there were a lot of Indians.
the old
They were
barns?
from the Indian church down, and the biggest settlement was right here, right across the river.
Uh-huh.
As soon as you cross this bridge over here, there were houses on both sides.
On both sides?
Both sides.
Wow. I didn't think it was that big.
We had a lot of Indians that lived there. And then the rest of them lived up on, the only one, we had one Indian in town that was a Hardwick, and he lived up in the church, the house across from our church.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
The one down by the water tower.
yeah, right.
Okay.
That's where he lived. And he was the only Indian that lived in town, and it's because he was an electrician, and he worked for American Playground. I mean, Badenoch and American Playground.
I see. So,
They shopped here, they went to our school here, and they worked here. Archie Hardwick.
Archie, okay,
Archie
yeah.
Hardwick,
I see.
lumber and stuff like that. Yeah. He did that for American Playground too, I guess. I mean, for Badenoch too. It was a job, yep. In those days, it was a big job because, they had the lumber camps, to take care of, early in the morning they have to load that train and get it ready, take all the food up to the camps.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it was a busy store,
Right.
You mean why they call it Hospitality House or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Because that's where the big shots lived.
Mm-hmm.
The superintendent.
Some of them talk ghost town. This is a ghost town, and where you live in Nema, that ghost town, boy, that'd make me mad. I say, hey, there's a lot worse places, and I'm always happy in Nema.
They had so many people in that gymnasium dancing to a name band from Green Bay that they caved in one end of the whole gymnasium floor. The floor went down about 2 feet to one whole end of it. There was that many people there.
You not only waited in line, but on Saturday night, you got a shave, see? And that lasted all week. That's 35 cents.
Buy a fifth of whiskey, we go to Sonava, 99 cents. And then they have a party for the weekend. Each group would do that with babies. 99 cents.
Don't give all of our good times away.
We'd go on the train, and the men would leave us off where the berries were, raspberries or blueberries or whatever, pick all day long. Then they'd pick us up and bring us home.
And I used to run from school to go up to the hospital to do the dishes that was left from the day, and that was my enjoyment. When I was a kid.
You're a housewife.
Well, say that your job paid 10 cents a day more than mine, I'd go looking for your job.
They have a chain brake system on the those